Stocks on Wall Street end near the flat line as President Donald Trump offers no exceptions to the 1st August tariff deadline. The Dow Jones slips over 160 points while the S&P 500 and Nasdaq were little changed at close. Asian markets have started today's trade on a cautious note as investors held back from taking any risky bets after Donald Trump ruled out extending his August tariff deadline. Meanwhile, the GIFT Nifty is indicating a marginally negative start for our own markets. Oil prices edged up to a 2-week high on forecasts for less U.S. oil production, renewed Houthi attacks on shipping in the Red Sea, while gold prices have slipped more than 1% amidst a firmer U.S. dollar and rising treasury yields adding further pressure. And in his cabinet meeting, US President Donald Trump says that all members of BRICS, including India, will have to pay an additional 10% tariff. He also added that he planned to implement a 50% tariff rate on copper, while also indicating that he could also offer pharmaceutical manufacturers at least a year before implementing a 200% tariff on their foreign-made products. And even as we await an India-US trade deal, Donald Trump says that he will make trade announcements related to at least 7 countries later tonight. Sources tell CNBC TV 18 that India's trade negotiating team may visit the US in the coming days to hold discussions on outstanding issues and some sticking points. Midweek has arrived and you're watching Power Breakfast right here on CNBC TV 18 in the Mumbai News Center. I am Hormuz Fatakia. It's a cautious start to the trading day across the Asia Pacific, mirroring how Wall Street ended overnight. The Hang Seng is a bit of an underperformer today, almost 1% lower as we speak. So the only major underperformer is the Hang Seng, but most of the other indices, look at the Taiwanese index, absolutely at the flat line. The Japanese index too trading at the flat line currently. The Kospi is trading with gains of around 0.5%, bucking the trend. The Shanghai Composite is absolutely flat, and this is after China's producer price data, which came in just a few minutes earlier, fell 3.6% in the month of June, which is the biggest drop in 2 years. And that is after the deflationary pressures continuing to persist in China, but not a significant reaction seen in the stock markets, at least on the Shanghai Composite. But the Hong Kong listed shares are trading with losses in today's session. Pull up the GIFT Nifty. I'll give you an idea of how our own markets are likely to start off. Well, the earlier ticks were indicating a 40-odd point down tick that has narrowed down to 20 points as of now. So we'll keep an eye out on how this sandwiched session today between the sensex expiry yesterday and the Nifty expiry tomorrow pans out. But on Wall Street, it was a mixed session on Tuesday. The Dow was the underperformer, falling around 0.4%. But if you take a look at the other two indices, they were absolutely at the flat line. CNBC's Steve Kovac gets us a wrap of all the action on Wall Street.
U.S. markets were mixed across the major indexes in Tuesday trading after President Trump said no extensions would be granted for his August 1st start date on tariffs. The Dow falling 166 points, the S&P 500 down by 4 points, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq was up 6 points. President Trump said in a Tuesday cabinet meeting there would be no extensions granted to the new August 1st tariff deadline for trading partners to negotiate new deals with the U.S. The original deadline was supposed to be Wednesday, July 9th, but on Monday the president extended it to August 1st. Then later in the day said even that deadline was, quote, not 100% firm. But in the cabinet meeting, he also suggested he will impose a 50% tariff on copper imports, and that 200% tariffs on imported pharmaceuticals would be coming, quote, very soon, but wouldn't go into effect immediately. And SpaceX is reportedly about to increase in value. According to Bloomberg, the company is discussing plans to raise money and sell insider shares in a deal that would value the Elon Musk private venture at approximately $400 billion. That's a big increase from the $350 billion valuation set during a share buyback last December. SpaceX has yet to comment on the report. That's what's happening here in the U.S. Back to you in Mumbai.
Steve Kovac, thank you for that wrap from Wall Street. Here's some opinion from Atlantic Council's Fred Kempon on the Trump's tariff moves.
The markets still haven't priced in their potential impact on growth, their potential impact on inflation. He's particularly going after two of our allies, Japan and South Korea, where the cost alone to the auto industry could have a real hit to to the American consumer. But there's some triumphalism right now here in the White House. They say, well, April 2nd, we did Liberation Day. It hasn't been inflationary. The markets are doing fine. We've had we're having a good run on other fronts. So the president said, this is a time for me to push and show people that I'm not Trump always chickens out. That it's not Taco Trump. It's a deadline that's set 3 weeks out. Many people were hoping it would go past Labor Day. And so I think it's not him punting. I think it's him doubling down on his seriousness around tariffs.
That'll be the most important trigger to watch out for. Let us also listen in to what market expert Lauren Goodwin had to say about where the market currently stands.
I am less constructive on the policy backdrop for this market. Now, I expect that for the next quarter, especially here in the next month, as we have earnings reports start to roll in, what we expected on April 2nd and what we have gotten for the second quarter are different things. And so I think that we'll see an earnings backdrop that's constructive. I agree that we're not likely to see Liberation Day 2.0 type of movement here in the next several weeks. However, I think the reason that the market isn't pricing really the impacts of tariffs is because we haven't seen it in the economic data, and I strongly believe that that's coming. The Fed is worried about and looking at is an environment where holiday ordering, starting around now, that's where you're going to see the impact of higher goods prices.
Interestingly, even as Wall Street ended at the flat line, a couple of analysts have already raised their price targets on the S&P 500 despite these tariff uncertainties. Now, Dia is now joining in with all the Trump-related developments from last night in our special segment, Trump Watch. Dia.
Starting with major moves on tariffs and foreign policy, President Donald Trump says there will be at least 7 trade announcements on Wednesday. That's later tonight in a post on Truth Social. While there's been no official word on India-US deal yet, maybe tonight we will hear something. Trump also said he is planning to impose a 50% duty on copper imports as part of a set of looming sectoral tariffs, while threatening 200% levy on pharmaceuticals. However, he said drug makers would be given about a year to get their act together.
Ones we did steel, as you know, they're 50%. We did aluminum, 50%. Lumber just came out.
Why don't you announce copper?
And we did cars. And now, today we're doing copper.
Copper and lumber. What would that tariff be on? The sectional tariff?
I believe the tariff on copper, we're going to make it 50%.
50%.
And we'll be announcing something very soon on pharmaceuticals. We're going to give people about a year and a half to come in, and after that they're going to be tariffed if they have to bring the pharmaceuticals into the country, the drugs and other things into the country. They're going to be tariffed at a very, very high rate, like 200%. We'll give them a certain period of time to get their act together. But they were all here now. They all left. They went to other places because we allowed people that sat in this room allowed it to happen. And I don't allow it to happen. The people in this room don't allow it to happen.
Copper is finished. We've done with our study. We've handed the study over to the president. The president knows that he has the ability, since we've studied the market of copper, to set the market tariff for copper. He announced it today at the cabinet meeting that he intends to go to 50%, which will be similar to steel and aluminum, which are both 50%, so copper will be 50%. And the idea is to bring copper home, bring copper production home, bring the ability to make copper, which is key to the industrial sector, back home to America. We need that kind of production in America. It's important, so that'll be out today. With pharmaceuticals and semiconductors, those studies are being completed at the end of the month, and so the president will then set his policies then.
On the diplomatic front, Trump met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for the second time in just 24 hours. The two leaders reportedly discussed possible pathways to end what Trump called the tragedy of the ongoing war in Gaza. Now, turning to the war in Ukraine, President Trump delivered a sharp rebuke of Russian President Vladimir Putin, saying he has approved the delivery of more defensive weapons to Ukraine. This comes after an earlier Pentagon pause was lifted. Let's listen to what he said.
We're not happy with Putin. I'm not happy with Putin. I can tell you that much right now, because he's killing a lot of people. And a lot of them are his soldiers and their soldiers, mostly. And it's now up to 7,000 a week.
And lastly, President Donald Trump said Jerome Powell should resign immediately if allegations from critics that the Federal Reserve Chairman misled lawmakers about renovations at the central bank's headquarters proved true. Listen in.
Jerome Powell, who you've been pressuring to lower interest rates, he's facing accusations of lying to Congress, which is a potential crime about the
Well, then he should resign immediately. We should get somebody in there that's going to lower interest rates.
Do you want congressional
Why don't you
reporting
call for
into
his
that?
resignation?
Dia, thanks a lot for that update. And of course, Donald Trump there on Jerome Powell continuing his attack on the Fed chairman. Take a short break here on Power Breakfast. On the other side, how will all of these global cues impact our own markets? Our research team joins in with Power Prep. Welcome back. Our research team is ready to set you up for today's trading session. Firstly, Vivek is here to get us all the market cues you need to watch out for. Vivek, good morning. Well, the large caps led the fight back yesterday, but what are the important cues you're watching out for today?
Good morning. Absolutely right. The last hour fight back was led by the large caps, especially the financials. Well, going into trade today, so much uncertainty. U.S. market lines largely make the oil price at a 2-week high. The tariff uncertainty continues. Tariffs. There are talks of tariffs. As far as number one, India is concerned, number two, copper is concerned, you could see some impact on commodity prices. And lastly, watch out for the entire pharma pack. While tariffs are still some time away, given the fact that the tariffs could be quite high, you could see some impact on the Indian listed layers as well. Last evening or second half of yesterday, what happened? A very smart recovery, and it was the financial heavyweights that actually helped the markets recover quite sharply. But the advanced decline ratio continued to remain in favor of the declines. What are the key stocks that stood out? Well, Kotak Mahindra Bank, much better than expected growth. That was a clear standout. And on the other hand, Titan, jewelry EBIT margin as well as jewelry itself was something that was a bit of a disappointment. So that stock clearly lagged. Asian markets, GIFT Nifty, all indicating a subdued start for our own markets today.
Subdued start indeed. Vivek, thanks a lot for that update. Over to Ria now, who would highlight the stocks that you need to keep an eye out for today. Ria, good morning.
Good morning, Hormuz. Let's take a look at the stocks that are going to be in focus today. First up, we have 5paisa Capital reporting their Q1 FY26 numbers. The net profit for this one has gone down by around 42% on a year-on-year basis, and even the revenue has seen a fall of around 24% compared to the previous year. Moving on to some companies that have come out with their Q1 business updates. For JSW Steel, the crude steel production has gone up by around 14% on a year-on-year basis, coming in at 7.26 metric tons, and the Indian operations have also gone up by around 15% for this company. For Tata Steel, the Q1 India production volumes have come in at 5.26 metric tons, largely flat compared to the previous year. And for Q1, the India delivery volumes are also down about 3.8% compared to the previous year. Moving on to Union Bank, the total deposits are up around 3.5% compared to the previous year. Even the global gross advances have gone up by around 6.8%. Moving away from the business updates, CAMS is also going to be in focus today. They have launched the CAMS Pays, which is the new payment gateway that supports over 5,000 transactions per second. Bajel projects also to be in focus today. They have increased the galvanization capacity to 1.1 lakh MTPA from the current 40,500 odd MTPA capacity, and they're also planning a capacity addition of 170 crores at their Ranjangaon facility. For Ola Electric, they have announced the mass rollout of the Move OS 5, which is the biggest software upgrade yet. Dixon Technologies is another one to keep on your radar today. They have invested about rupees 2.5 crores for a 50% stake in Litanium Technologies. And the last one is India Shelter FinCorp of Kotak Mahindra Mutual Fund has bought a 4.2% stake in the company for about 384 crores. And Nexus Ventures Partners has offloaded about 4.6% equity in this one.
Interesting list there. Yeah, thanks a lot for that. Lastly, Sudarshan joins in with cues from the FNO space. Sudarshan, good morning. Closed above 25,500, but does the FNO data indicate that these levels will sustain?
That was the positive part, that Nifty has held on to levels over 25,500, and that's the courtesy that financial heavyweights like Kotak Mahindra Bank, HDFC Bank and ICICI Bank have been moving higher, because if you remember, both Kotak Mahindra Bank and HDFC Bank have recently released quarterly updates, and the updates were strong by both these companies. That's the main reason that you are seeing gains in both Nifty and Nifty Bank. While market breadth was in favor of declines, that was the reason, because mid-cap index has fallen, and at the end it was a close in the red. For today also, GIFT Nifty is indicating a start with minor cuts. As far as flows are concerned, FIs sell figures minutely around rupees 26 crore, but DIs have bought more than rupees 1,300 crore. In the index futures too, FIs have sold nearly rupees 270 crore, and they have added long positions of nearly 2,800 contracts, but at the same time they have also added short positions of more than 4,100 contracts. And now, FI long exposure has increased to nearly 29%. Now, on the option data front, 25,700 call has seen the maximum addition. And here, the addition was more than 18 lakh shares. And 25,400 call has seen shedding of 10 lakh shares. So it tells you that on the downside for Nifty, support remains around 25,400. That's the reason I've taken the support of 25,330, that is around 20-day moving average. And resistance remains around 25,700. One stock that remains in the band is RBL Bank. And apart from this, keep an eye on Pharma and Metal Names on the issue of talks related to trade tariffs.
Interesting, Sudarshan. Thanks a lot for that. Of course, pharma stocks will continue to remain in focus today, not just for the tariff-related threats from Donald Trump, but they may get some GST relief on the free drug samples given to doctors and hospitals. Now, sources have told CNBC TV 18 that the GST Council may consider allowing input tax credit benefits on these free samples. Timsy is joining in now with more details. Timsy, what are your sources telling you?
In what could ease some tax pain for the pharma sector, sources have confirmed to CNBC TV 18 that the upcoming GST Council is likely to consider a clarification that may allow input tax credit, or ITC, on promotional and free drug samples distributed by pharma companies. Currently, under the GST framework, only in a select few cases companies are allowed to claim ITC on goods distributed without consideration, which includes free samples. But pharma companies say that this rule unfairly impacts them because their samples are not marketing giveaways to consumers but are provided exclusively to doctors and hospitals. These free samples, the companies argue, help end users, as only doctors assessing a patient gives them for free while prescribing these drugs. The pharma industry has also pointed out that expenditure on such free samples accounts for up to 2% of their total manufacturing costs, marking the denial of a ITC as a significant cost burden. The demand from the industry is clear. Treat pharma samples differently from FMCG promotional items like sachets or retail freebies, and allow uniform ITC benefits across the board. Sources tell us that the GST Council may consider issuing a clarification circular to address this anomaly, one that could free up a major chunk of blocked input tax credit for Indian drug makers. However, officials also say that the Council will look at this particular framework with several safeguards to prevent misuse and ensure that this relief does not trigger similar demands from unrelated sectors. But so what end it comes out to be, or what is it that the Council will decide? Something that we'll have to wait and watch for.
Timsy, thanks a lot for that update. Take a short break. Cues from the commodities market on the other side, and it's an action-packed one. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Manisha Gupta is now joining in with all the updates from the commodity space. Manisha, good morning. It was all about copper last night.
Oh, well, absolutely, Hormuz. 17% of a gain at one point in time in the New York session yesterday, making a record high at $5.9. So we did see settlement up by nearly 10%. This is after the U.S. President Trump has proposed a 50% tariff on copper. The move does align with copper tariffs with existing 50% on steel and aluminum as well. Well, there are various reports really out there suggesting that it perhaps could be signed in July, or the final decision on copper tariffs can be expected by November. So there is no clarity of timing. But one thing is for sure, that ahead of these 50% tariffs that can come in copper, U.S. will be importing a lot of copper ahead of this notification or before this deal is signed there. So you could be looking at a huge disparity into the markets. Yesterday also, even as the U.S. copper prices were trading 10 and 15 and 17% on the higher side, the LME was just about 2 to 3% on the higher side. So there's a huge disparity on the major exchanges where copper is traded, whether it is U.S., LME or Shanghai for that matter. So it's going to be quite interesting to see on how we see copper trading today as well.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Copper all the way last night. Manisha, thanks a lot for that update. But we call time on this edition of Power Breakfast. From me and the team that put this show together, thank you so much for watching. Bazaar Morning Call on the other side sets you up for the day's trade.